Start recording. But all I really want to do is like do quick introductions because a lot of the BirdBot community doesn't even know who you guys are. They kind of just like know you by name or they'll look you up on LinkedIn. I mean, Andrew, you're pretty relatively new to the project, and this will probably be a more learning experience going through the tokenomics and kind of going through some of the stuff in that document. But yeah, we can just jump into quick introductions. I don't really care who goes first, but I guess since Connor's on the left of me, I guess he can go first if you want to go.
Sure. My name is Connor O'Brien. I own a wildlife conservation technology company called Window to Wildlife. We install lots of live streaming eagle cameras, osprey cameras, other wildlife cameras around the nation. And I also work at Alveus Sanctuary as operations manager.
Dope. And I guess I'll go next since I'm in the middle. I'm Tyler Odenthal. I'm the founder of BirdBot. I previously founded a company called No Labs, which was a biospectroscopy company that invented a new way to detect blood glucose. Right now, I'm heavily focused on the machine learning portion of BirdBot. And our goal is to create a system where it rewards people for setting up bird cameras and eventually migrate that to all wildlife. So rewarding people for setting up nature cameras in general.
Cool. And my name is Andrew Schulz. I'm currently a fourth-year PhD candidate at Georgia Tech in Atlanta, Georgia, working on bioinspiration and biomimetics of elephant trunks is my primary PhD project. And then on the side, but also as a big part of what I do is I work on educating the new kind of generation of conservation technologists. So I teach an interdisciplinary class to about 25 students each semester on how you can bring together engineers, computer scientists, and biologists to actually form equitable conservation initiatives in terms of technology. So, yeah.
Awesome. No, that sounds great. And if the BirdBot community didn't know, these two are going to be our research advisors. And Connor is very soft-spoken about some of the accomplishments he's done. He's set up, I don't know, dozens of cameras. And Andrew as well probably has probably helped in that initiative. And their insights are going to be exceptionally resourceful with BirdBot going forward. So with the quick introductions done, I would like to hop into the tokenomics. Have you guys had a chance to look at the tokenomics or watch the video that I did with my NFT partners?
A bit of it, yeah.
Okay, cool. It's okay if you didn't, Andrew, because we're going to be going through it right now.
Cool. Perfect, yeah.
All right. Dope. Cool. So this is screen one. Let's just open up screen one. And I make this full screen. This is going to be fun. Cool. Wow, that's a lot. Cool. Well, I think we lost you guys. Oh, I know how to fix this. My bad, guys. My bad. Let's do...
The first time I ever streamed on Twitch, I don't know if you were there, Connor, but I accidentally immediately leaked my email, and my with oh, it's not good. I had Gmail open. It was good times. Good time.
Man, Zoom is easier for me, so I guess we'll just do screen one and just delete our faces, which is a little annoying, but it is what it is. There we go. BirdBot tokenomics. Cool. Can everyone see that?
Yep. Yeah.
Dope. All right. Well, next time I'll figure out how to get our faces on the screen. Zoom usually puts it in the top right corner, but it is what it is. So let's just start the tokenomics discussion. So this is BirdBot, and BirdBot aims to be the world's first Web3 wildlife monitoring company. And all that really means is you are being rewarded for capturing data, and you're being rewarded on a blockchain. So that's kind of what the Web3 is starting to turn into. It's the gamification of the internet is how you can start to think about it. So we want to gamify, bird watching and wildlife monitoring. So why is BirdBot kind of important? You guys can actually tell me a lot more about this in a more articulate way than I have, but my understanding is that community science is a huge thing that we've used throughout history, and the problem is that we're not using as much community science in an effective way anymore. If you look back to farming generations and hunters and indigenous people, they would use community science on a very, very, intimate level. They would communicate as a group and be like, hey, this is poisonous. This animal is good to eat. This is how you skin it. Stuff like that used to be, common practice. But as we've become more and more specialized and more, less generalized, we don't have to go farm. We don't have to go out and hunting. It's more of a recreational thing now. We're starting to lose that community science type feel. And I would love to get that back. So why does it matter? So what happens, and you guys can actually talk a little bit on this. Do you also feel that we're starting to lose a little bit of community science?
I feel like there's probably the people that want to do it probably don't know exactly what they're doing, and data's not that reliable. So it's if we can automize it or just kind of make it a lot simpler for people, I think that's going to be a lot more relevant. And scientists just don't trust as much community science as they probably could.
Yeah.
Andrew, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, so on the academic side, right, it's the challenge in a lot of this is if you think of collecting data, right, and you're trying to get and understand where animals are. I mean, to me, the reason that it really matters from a community standpoint is, I mean, if we think about it, we're still discovering species every year. And like, I think just last year, we figured the IUCN, basically the organization responsible for endangered animals, figured out that there's actually 3 elephant species, not just 2. So African forest elephant. So to me, some of why this is important is community science is important just also to allow people to kind of do this idea of backyard conservation. Because one of the challenges is if you, and I think maybe this is your point, is right, you can put a camera trap in your backyard, but there's not a really lot of good ways to actually communicate that in terms of from a scientific perspective outside of just observational. And I think that's one of the big kind of holes in the field right now.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic to hear you guys' perspective on that, because that is kind of what I'm hitting at. I think there's a lot of benefits we can gain from, activating more, backyard conservationists or, park conservationists, if you will. People could set up, cameras in parks, and, if we had this autonomous system that could map species, but not just species, there's actually a model that I'm developing right now to detect house finch eye disease, because I've noticed, like, on my balcony, there's a couple of finches every year over the 2 years that I've been doing this that come in with house finch eye disease. And you could easily train a model to detect that. So the implications of activating these backyard conservationists could have some pretty cool things.
It's interesting because Connor and I actually are collaborating on a project right now that's looking at doing something similar, but with thermal cameras. And so bumblefoot is a big issue actually with perching with birds, where they'll basically get athlete's foot on their talons. And
oh, wow.
It's something that you can actually look at, and we're seeing if we can detect it using something like thermal cameras, right? And so you're completely right. There's a lot of unanswered questions in of that sense that we can do, and we can even understand if some of these things, like you're discussing, are translating between different species. So yeah.
Dope. No, the insights are great. So I think we've kind of hit on a lot of the reasons why, activating conservationists is a good thing, but like, why does it ultimately matter if we don't do it? So like, what happens if we don't actually actively participate in conservation? Well, here are some of the effects, right? So like, some of these species are indicator species, and you guys as conservationists know this, but like, one of the ones that I recently studied was called the pigeon guillemot, which is a seabird species out on the Puget Sound. And essentially, as we start to lose these species, we start to lose all other species that are tied to it, because they are essentially an ecosystem marker of like biodiversity and health. So that's a huge issue, is that if we don't know if we're losing indicator species, that's a problem. And we've actually already lost a lot of bird species, which is really unfortunate. So this stat came out of Cornell, and since 1970, we've lost 30% of all bird populations. We've lost whole species. There are certain species that, our grandparents have seen that we're never going to be able to see, which is very unfortunate. And then, if we start to lose birds, we start to lose a lot of like trees and vegetation, because the forestry industry actually relies on birds for, germinations of, thousands of plants and trees. And so it becomes actually like a big forestry issue as well. So these are kind of the key issues of why it starts to matter.
And I want to add a quick point to the forest industry.
When
we lost the passenger pigeon, when they became extinct, it decimated the East Coast type of forest, because the passenger pigeon would come in and poop on just tons and tons and tons of leaves, and it would cause them to die, allow a lot of light to get to the forest floor, and allow for a lot healthier forest. And now that they're gone, the canopy is just choking out everything underneath.
Yeah.
And our forests aren't as biodiverse and as strong and as healthy, and it's led to a lot of diseases that have spread around and actually caused a huge million, if not billion-dollar impact on the forest industry and us as a whole building our houses. So it's a chain effect. And if we can identify this early on, like, hey, BirdBot has identified a 25% decline in this specific bird species in the past 3 years. What's going on here? Let's see if we can fix it, because down the chain it could cost taxpayers half $500,000 a year to remedy this problem, because it's doing this really bizarre thing that we never thought about. So it's extremely important.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate that insight, because that's exactly what I'm hitting on. There's probably so many implications that we don't actually understand. Goodness, I was just interested, and I looked up the red-breasted nuthatch, and I started to like do a ton of research on this like tiny little nuthatch, because I was just like, why is this thing important? Like, it comes to my balcony every day and it picks up the seeds, and it's essentially a tiny woodpecker. And it's for the same exact reasons. Like, there are certain tree species that without the red-breasted nuthatch, they just like wouldn't exist in the Pacific Northwest. So like, I totally agree. Like, this is a huge issue. Huge issue. So why are birds important? So we've tackled a little bit about that, but like, why aren't more people getting involved? And I think we've also hit on that a little bit, but it's primarily a lack of subject expertise. So even if you're a backyard conservationist, like let's say you don't know what the red-breasted nuthatch is, or a carrier pigeon, or you don't know the name of the bird, and if you don't know the name, you probably don't know what it does. So that's like a lack of subject expertise. And then if you don't know what it does, and you don't know the name, it's very unlikely that you're going to be able to donate that knowledge to community science. So lack of subject expertise is a huge issue. And that's like one of the things that AI can solve, because AI has subject expertise. You kind of just build it into the AI system. It's supposed to be an expert. So that's one potential like issue with why people aren't getting involved. And then incentive structure. So like, if you don't get paid enough to like learn something, people aren't gonna do it. And this is just an issue with our common society, right? Like, everything's very capitalist, everything's money based. So like, if we don't have an incentive structure to actually get people activated, they're not going to learn about it. So I feel like these two issues are the core issues of why community science is struggling right now, is because of lack of subject expertise, like, and it's hard to get money. But what are your thoughts on this?
I think from cameras are expensive. So, I mean, if BirdBot one day becomes a plug and play solution, like I think you guys are wanting to do, I think it becomes a lot easier for people to jump on it. And if they get incentivized for it as well, amazing. And I think that's huge. I think at the beginning, incentive structure is huge, because for a system I want to set up with BirdBot, if we can get it to work, I'm expecting $3,000 to $6,000 in setup costs for a remote system, with solar and cellular data. It's just expensive. So if there's a way to recoup that money, and then the business partners I have, they're like, go for it. If there's a chance to recoup money, let's see what happens. Versus before, like, if there was no incentive structure, I'd either have to write a grant, or I would just have to suck it up and just hope, maybe YouTube ad revenue would pay for it one day.
Prey on YouTube views, right? Like, get some subscribers maybe, and then you could build it up that way. But even then, like, a everyday person's not gonna like try to be a YouTuber. So
yeah, it's hard. You're hitting, maybe 100 or 200 people at that point. if you didn't have an incentive structure. So
Yeah.
with the incentive structure, you have a much wider reach.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, and something too about this, just as a basis of, is I think a lot of times we look a lot externally for conservation, right? Where there's a lot of things that happen like in our backyards. That I mean, Connor's going to know a ton about the Southeast, as he used to live in Tennessee, and in terms of looking at the Southeast, right? There's like probably hundreds at this point of plant and animal species that are endangered, right? But I think something that is a clue of this that I didn't even really think of was, if you, Connor earlier was talking about, you're seeing 25% less, but everybody thinks about a species as like vulnerable, endangered, fine, but there's this whole giant group of species that are just not studied. So
Yeah.
our level of understanding of endangered species is actually a lot lower than what it actually is, because we don't have enough scientists able to write like I'm not a bird expert in terms of that. I just would consider myself a conservation tech person. But if you think of just how many birds you can personally name, right, and then how many scientists you can personally name, right, and that goes to the nth degree, there's thousands. So we're never going to actually have, without using things like that, enough information to figure out what's happening with all these bird species.
Oh, so interesting. So you're even saying at like the research level, we actually have a lack of subject expertise on the wide array of species.
So if I don't know if you want to break your if you want to break it, but if you look at like the IUCN list of categories, essentially.
Yeah, the endangered species list.
Yeah. And so if you look at the endangered species list, though, there's data deficient.
Interesting.
That's like most of it, right?
Yeah. Wow.
No.
Yeah.
So data deficient is, so if you think of like all of the fauna, all like every single species on Earth of animals, and let's just take birds as an example. So right now there are 20,054 data deficient species on the IUCN red list, and that's just current ones we know.
Yeah.
So then, and those, some of them could be, we just know it's an animal. So through genetics, we figured out that this species exists, but we might not have seen it in 15 years.
Wow.
So to me, the lack of subject expertise in some of this also boils down to the idea where there's so many of these species that we don't actually have any data for, because we just don't have the access always of a way in terms of that.
Dang. Well, that's some insane insights, because like I knew about the endangered species list, of course, but I didn't really know about that niche labeling of like, we don't have enough data to actually make a conclusion, right? Like that's actually mind blowing to me.
And yeah. I could see BirdBot getting to a point where either you're partnering with like other bird organizations or something, and going and arguing in front of the IUCN Red List board to get bird species on the endangered species list.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have so much data, you can just bring it, and once you kind of get tapped into that kind of organization, it's probably easier to get species listed and protected. And I could see that happening in the next 3 to 5 years. You guys, making a big conservation impact and having to go argue.
Yeah, I mean, that's the goal. I really do hope that we do get to that level where, the model can detect a huge array of species. I would say it's up to about like 30, 35 species at the moment, and they're mostly, tied to bird feeder species. But as the camera, gets more and more robust, and we can release our like V2, which will be more of like a trail cam. I of course, I would love to have it on beaches. I'd love to have it in, forests. I'd love to have it in parks. It's the amount of data that we could collect is very wide when we get it working well. And I do think it, like you guys are saying, it could have a very significant impact. And I'd love to get there. I'd love to have you guys help me get there. So how can I get involved? Well, I believe, and you guys can correct me if any of this doesn't make total sense, but I believe that the solution is blockchain. And through blockchain, we can actually through the use of blockchain and innovations in machine learning, we could start to address some of these key issues. Some of those being, the monetary incentive issue, the emotional issue, the scientific issue, and the education issue. So monetary rewards leads to, a crypto-based incentive economy. So birding as an industry already is huge. I think we all kind of know that, but the math I did last time was that the birding industry is bigger than the NFL, the MLB, the NBA, pretty much all the sporting industries combined. Birding is bigger than that. So essentially, if we can start to capture that birding community and give it a crypto-based incentive economy around monitoring birds, and then we can tie that to, the emotional connection that already exists in the birding community. Like a lot of the birders that I talk to are really, passionate about birding, and they care about their environment, and they want to go see all the birds. And this is a very emotionally attached community. And then there's usually a heavy scientific portion to bird watching. It's usually about collecting a list of birds, which is data collection. So if you're able to collect new data, you can actually start to contribute to wildlife understanding. And then obviously getting more people involved will be an education factor. So like if you didn't know about birds and then you buy BirdBot and then the AI teaches you about bird names, and then eventually, the AI is like, hey, pulling up bird facts. Well, then this is a huge education perk. Some people might just buy BirdBot for an education use case. So I believe that, blockchain has the power when you attach the monetary incentive with it. And I'll do a little bit of math if we have time later about the monetary side of it. But I think attaching the monetary feature with these already 3 existing features in the birding community could, pretty much solve a lot of the issues around the incentive based structure of community science. All right. So go for it.
I was just gonna give for non-fish currently, we have in the world, so non-fish animal species, 8,300 data deficient species.
8,300.
So that's reptiles, birds. That's reptiles, birds, mammals. Wow. Reptiles, amphibians, etc.
That's awesome to know. And it's funny that you brought up fish, because the Algorand Foundation, which is the blockchain that we operate off of, they're trying to be like the greenest blockchain in the world. And one of their recent hackathons is called like Fishathon or something like that. And they're actually addressing the same issue, right? They realize that fish populations and, reptiles, and just like, we don't have a lot of data of what's going on under the water. So like they're trying to invent cameras, any type of system that, can monitor fish better. It's obviously coming from that, right? They're just like data deficient on fish populations. We're data deficient on a lot of things, obviously.
If you ever make a fish spot, let me know, because I'm a diver as well.
Oh yeah,
I've actually already know a spot, and I already have a plan built for an underwater cam on one of the most biodiverse reefs in the United States.
You're the third person to ask me for a fish bot, so I'll probably after BirdBot, I think fish bot will come along, but I mean that is the natural progression of BirdBot, right? So it's gonna start with birds, because I think birds is like the easiest way to attach to like a general population, like because anyone can go buy bird seed and just throw it outside, right, and then watch the birds. It's a little bit harder with fish, but like it's the same exact concept, right? You put a camera in the water, you start to aggregate data. Over time, you label the data, and it eventually knows what fish is in the water. So I'm down to make a fish bot. We just got to make this one successful first, and then we can move on to fish bot.
I'll come back to you in like 3 years.
Yeah. We'll get on it. All right. So, I mean, how does it work? It'd work the same exact way if we wanted to do a fish bot, but essentially you install the software on your computer, you connect a camera, you capture bird videos, that gets logged to the database in the blockchain. So essentially the bird has to be on the screen for at least 1 second, so 30 frames before the species actually gets logged. And this is like, in the case of like a chickadee, right? Like a chickadee might be on the screen for 5 seconds, and like let's say it's moving around a lot and the AI can't really accurately detect it. We've set in a threshold for like a 30 frame threshold, just to make sure that the species that it's logging is accurate. And then once when it gets logged, it goes to our blockchain. And then after every 24 hours, this blockchain gets read. And then we pay people out in birds tokens. And then eventually, this is kind of like the V1 process. Eventually, you'll just buy, eventually you'll just buy the camera. Man, we're good back there real quick. All right. Yeah, but eventually, once when we launch the actual camera, you'll literally just buy the camera and then you'll set it up. So it'll be more like step 2, 3, 4, 5. But right now, the software is going to be launched on our website and also on our GitHub. So essentially, you could download the software and then install it to your computer. And then if you have a webcam or camera at home, you can use that camera temporarily as a BirdBot. And then you can capture video and, do this whole process. But eventually we'll have our own camera hardware that, we'll cut out step 1 and it'll just be step 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Nice.
Yeah. And then here's my example setup. And this would be, the V1 setup where, you have your DSLR camera. And then, it captures birds, your, house finch, golden crown sparrow. And then it goes to your computer, and then the computer logs it to the blockchain, and then I'll be paid birds tokens every 24 hours. And right here would be 25 birds tokens because BirdBot's currently set to reward 5 tokens per successfully identified bird. And you can see down here, there's like a species list. And essentially, once when all these birds leave, it'll calculate how many birds it saw, and then it'll just reward you those tokens on the ledger. And then here is some interesting stuff. I don't want to go too much into it because a lot of it it does matter, but like the main thing is this section, which is the BirdBot rewards. And this is the largest pool. It's 30 billion birds tokens. And essentially this is the pool that we're going to be rewarding people for setting up wildlife cameras. And there's a distribution timeline for this. It's set up to distribute over 60 years, but I said in the other video that I'm going to shrink it down to 30 years because like 60 years for a company is a really, really, really long time. So even 30 years might be too long of a time to, distribute all these tokens out. But for right now, I'm comfortable with the reward cycle lasting for 30 years. And then, so essentially anyone who sets up a camera will be able to get rewarded tokens from this pool. This is called a Yieldly pool. It's another platform that we're using to distribute tokens to our early investors. It's currently not 10%, it's 5%. And then the other half is part of an algo stake pool, which is another way to distribute tokens to early investors. Tinyman LP is how people buy tokens. So you go to Tinyman, and Tinyman is kind of like the stock exchange for the Algorand platform. And this is where you can go to buy BirdBot tokens. This is where we're getting paid. So I'm getting paid from here. All the NFT partners, the engineers, you guys will be getting paid from here. And, future researchers will getting paid from the BirdBot team section. Community airdrops, there's ways to get free tokens through, doing promotions and such. And this is what that portion will be used for. Community voted grants. I'll actually hit on that a little bit later because this will be really exciting for you guys. But we'll be able to reward grants for nonprofits or organizations that we want to work with. And we can just sell tokens on the open market. We can go to Tinyman and go to their, open stock exchange, token exchange platform and be like, hey, we want to sell tokens for, a nonprofit that we want to work with. And then maybe we get $5,000 instantaneously and we just go to the nonprofit and we're like, hey, here's a grant. And then community-based jobs. It's kind of the same as like, community airdrops, but essentially this one's more defined for jobs necessarily, or, community tasks. So like what types of tasks? Well, you could be like a Discord moderator. Maybe you get some like 50,000 tokens a month for that or something. Or you can be like a bug bounty hunter for our software. Like let's say we release our software and there might be a bug in it that someone finds. We could like reward them 250,000 birds tokens for that. But yeah, like that's kind of how everyone has to have essentially a strategy for distributing their tokens. And this is kind of ours. This is my job, really. I'm kind of supposed to be the tokenomics expert because I have a background in economics. So it kind of relates pretty well to tokenomics. So
Awesome.
Yeah, projects that are successful are ones that can make this pie chart look really, really good and have a lot of incentives around it, and make sure that it doesn't run out of money anytime soon. So here's the mathematics on like how we're going to be paying people out in the BirdBot reward section. And I don't want to go too much into this because we have 15 more minutes, but essentially I did a lot of math and it'll show us that, we will last, 60 years. By the end of 60 years, we'll only be paying out, 8 million tokens a year. But by that time, maybe BirdBot tokens are worth, $5 or something crazy.
Right.
Here's the rewards timeline. So essentially it's daily rewards. You get 500 birds tokens per user. We think we're going to have a starting user base of 5,000. I'm going to have to probably redo these numbers once when I crunch it down to 30 years, because I'm going to up this up to 1,000 BirdBot tokens a day or 1,000 birds tokens a day. And then our starting user base might be higher. Like, let's say we have a really successful Kickstarter. And let's say we sell like 40,000 cameras or something. Obviously, we can't have a starting user base of 5,000 because we're going to have 40,000 cameras out in the market. So I'll need to restructure this a little bit, but this is essentially what it is for now. There's a user growth calculation. We don't really need to go into that. You can also click on the Google Sheet to see all of our math, but it doesn't really matter. Tiny Man LP data. This is also doesn't really matter, but this is how we essentially can set up, trading. So Tiny Man is the stock exchange, token exchange platform. It's called a DEX, a decentralized exchange platform. And essentially this is our promise to the community that over the next year on a monthly basis, we'll be adding more money to the pool so people can buy more birds tokens. So that's all that this section really says, is that, hey, we're not going to leave you guys out high and dry. We're going to continue adding money to the DEX so people can have more liquidity to buy the token. And then community airdrops. Here are some of the ways that people can get BirdBot tokens other than setting up a camera. So essentially you can make, we haven't really done any of these things other than, sharing and promoting, which is currently going on in the Discord right now. But we, maybe in the future we will have an incentive to, make social media posts, or maybe we have like a ton of video from Africa and like we need to have like a researcher who knows African bird species to do data annotation. We could hire them to, do data annotation for, like 2,000 birds, 2,000 photos or something, and like pay them birds tokens. And then like NFT holders might get paid, or liquidity pool providers might get paid. But this is just like extra ways that people can get paid. And then here's actually the really cool section for, conservationists, is the community grants section. So we've already built into our tokenomics that will be working with nonprofits and organizations through our community grants. So essentially, the community will be able to vote on a proposed grant. So essentially, we will already come up with a grant idea, and then we'll propose it to the community, and they'll vote on it. And if it passes, we can award this monthly allocation of 20 million birds tokens to that grant project. So I haven't done the math. I mean, I did the math last time. It might be more than this now, because we're doing pretty well as far as the token goes. But if we sell 2 million birds on the open market right now, it would equate to, this much algo, and how much algo equates to that much money. So if we went to the Audubon, like let's say we're talking to the Tucson, Arizona Audubon Society, and they want to set up a camera, we could be like, hey, do you have funding to do this? And they'd be like, well, I don't know, we need a $2,000 setup. But I'd be like, okay, well, I will propose this to our grant program, and if the community votes yes on it, we will document the whole process. We'll probably make a video, with Tucson, Arizona Audubon Society, and essentially document the whole process to show the community that, hey, this money was used to do this thing, and now we have this thing. And this is a common thing that, tokenomics have built into their tokenomic structure. So I have high hopes for this. But do you guys... Yeah, go for it.
So few things. So I do have to head out.
Yeah.
This is one of the biggest reasons why I want to support this is, because I just think that it's a lot of actually you talked a lot about how BirdBot is helping the community in terms of what the science that you're doing is, right? And then now this allows other people to advance their sciences through people actually birding, which is kind of crazy to think about, where like so these grants, right, are supported literally by people birding. So it's not like in and of a sense where the grants are supported by it's basically community science supported grants.
Yeah.
That's like the really cool part of this. And then I really do appreciate as well on it being community science supported but also voted grants. So I think it would be really, one thing that I want to work on is also figure out ways for conservation communities to be able to reach out and actually propose grants as well.
Definitely.
So that's one of the things that I want to start working on.
Yeah, that's exactly what we need, actually. I would love to be able to support researchers, at schools. They can propose grants and then we can review them, and we can push it to the community. And we have 5 years of grants. So every single month we'll have this allocation that we can do a new grant proposal. And you're totally right. You're right. This fund is funded by people who are interested in birding. So anyone who buys the camera, they can buy it in BirdBot tokens or Birds tokens, and that will increase this grant allocation, because essentially it's taking Birds tokens out of the market and it'll be putting it into our community wallet. So the more people that buy BirdBot cameras using birds, essentially the price of birds goes up and the whole birding community, gains more value. So yeah, this is literally capturing the birding market into its own like localized economy, which is really cool.
Yeah, I do have to head out. I have a meeting with actually Georgia Audubon, so I'm excited to talk to them about some of this as well.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I appreciate you taking the time, Andrew.
Thank you so much, and I will catch you.
Yeah, no worries. We're almost wrapped up anyways, so there's probably like 1 or 2 more slides that we got to go through, but then we're good. And then this is our team distribution. Actually, this changed a little bit, so I'll pull up the Reddit really quick, just so it would have been cool if we got to this section with Andrew, but that's totally fine.
Later. I'm always talking to him, and I'm sure you can always message him on Discord too.
Yeah. But this is kind of funny when we're talking about salaries and stuff, but have you seen this? Have you looked at, you're probably a busy boy, so.
But I did a little bit, yeah.
Yeah. So essentially this is the token, I can't call it this. So do not call it this. Legally, I can't call it this. So this is a token reward program. It's not a token vesting structure, and it is not a token job. It is a token reward program. And essentially, I'm setting up positions or reward structures for people who want to get involved with BirdBot. And here's all the distribution sections and the percentages that people earn. Usually, when it comes to an advisor position, more on like a venture capital side, advisors usually get 1%. But I've made you guys executive advisors, which is because you guys are doing like a little bit more than just, being advisors. You guys might like help us connect with people. Andrew, goodness, you guys have already been such a help. So I'm happy to give you an extra %. And that's why, I've added the little executive to it, because people in the actual VC world will be like, oh, these guys are advisors. Why are they getting more than 1%? But
Well, thanks. It's going to go back to putting in more cams.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
That's like all the money I make from Window to Wildlife just goes back into more and more cam projects, tracker projects, wildlife conservation technology projects.
Yeah,
so
that's me.
What we love to do.
I agree. That's me at the moment. Like everything that I have is pretty much invested into myself and my projects. So, but yeah, here's what the executive advisor gets over 2 years. So we're doing a 2-year reward incentive. So essentially you get 1 million BirdBot tokens over the course of 2 years, divide that by 24 months, which means that you get close to 4 million a little over 4 million tokens a month. And then if you take that to tiny chart, let's just go quickly and find BirdBot. Our logo is supposed to be here on the weekend, which is great.
Nice.
Here's our chart. So it's pretty much exactly like the stock market. If you know how to read stock charts, you'll be able to read a token chart. But they have a nice little tool on TinyChart to estimate how much money you can exchange your token for. So let's just drop 4 million in there. And okay, so your monthly salary on BirdBot tokens is around $1,800 a month already.
Wow.
And as this market cap goes up and as the liquidity goes up, this price will obviously also go up. So that's just the fun little mathematics that I wanted to do real quickly. And where is my... Here, cool. So yeah, that's the team distribution. Is everyone's going to be getting paid, a little bit of Birds tokens for, working on the project. Nice. And then here's our BirdBot team members, and you're on there, cool. And here's me, here's Chad, here's our developers. Nice. But yeah, that's pretty much the whole gist of it. BirdBot trying to be cool Web3 wildlife monitoring company extraordinaire thing.
It's fantastic, and if once it gets to the cameras and kind of like a plug and play system, it'll be fantastic. I think people really love it.
Yeah, cool. Well, I appreciate you taking the time. Is there anything else you want to share with the community before I shut off the video and do our ending statements?
I was probably being a little modest in the beginning, but there's also a big entertainment value to these cameras. My Eagle cams that I installed at a previous job, we get about 50 million views a year with those cameras, and then our worst years were like 15 million views a year. And currently, now that I've gotten made my own company, not even a year old yet, Window to Wildlife. I mean, we're about to hit 1 million views total through our wildlife cam. So and we only have 3,000 subscribers on YouTube. So we're not big at all, but just having that passive content just can reach a lot of people. And if we're able to add education on top of that, and heck, even put little tiny hats on the birds and stuff like that, I think it's wonderful. People are going to pay attention to it more, and it becomes more than just community science, more than just cryptocurrency earnings. It becomes entertainment, and people can connect. And this is just the reason that I've loved this project and been attached to it. I guess in a month it'll be a year since I talked to you guys.
Yeah.
This is a stepping stone for the entire future of conservation, and because cameras are becoming more affordable. Verizon 5G home internet for $25 a month just came online. That's if I have cell signal, I'm putting a camera out there with that, and it's so much cheaper than what I'm having to do currently to get internet out to these remote cam locations. Solar, we got that figured out. So, and then Starlink's going to come, and we can just put cameras everywhere, and can just really get this out there and get way more data. Get people more comfortable with crypto, and also just have a great time doing it. So I think it's the full package, and I can't wait to see how it grows. And I'm going to hopefully do a lot of testing for you guys and advise you guys on the hardware side of the cameras as well, because I do a lot of that. And I think it's gonna be fantastic. I'm excited.
Yeah, no, I think you hit on a ton of some of the cool things that we have coming in the future. So we've already been playing around with the bird hat model. So we have a machine learning model that can put little tiny hats automatically on birds. It just tracks the bird head. So if any of you guys in the BirdBot community, have watched Twitch and those facial recognition models that put mustaches on, people automatically, or, put glasses on people automatically, doing the same exact thing for birds. So essentially that's the huge entertainment factor, is you can make these modules, these widgets, if you will, these machine learning widgets that, could be the bird hat model, or we've talked about, the sword fight model, where you have two birds on one side of the screen and they automatically get equipped with night outfits. And that's one that I want to do for a city environment. Cause I always imagine pigeons, if you have I'm just imagining like a downward facing subway cam, and essentially it's just like looking at like a ton of pigeons, and you have like a ton of pigeons on one side and a ton of pigeons on the other side, and it automatically colors them. And essentially you have like little bar on top, and it's like anytime that the pigeons get close, they attack each other. It's like it's endless what you could do with it. So yeah, the entertainment aspect of it, we're definitely not like diving super deep into it, but there is a huge roadmap for that. And yeah, I totally appreciate your comments on like getting people more comfortable with crypto, because there is a stigma around it. The initial technology that was built, Bitcoin and Ethereum, like they're not great. They're not environmentally friendly. Like the people that say like crypto is bad, they have some truth to it. But it's starting to become not all crypto. So Algorand, trying to be one of the greenest blockchains in the world, is definitely trying to change that. And we also agree. I think there's many ways that you can use crypto to do good in the world. So hopefully, BirdBot's one of those first projects, or, one of the few first projects that can help, innovate on that side of, blockchain and conservation and green technology. So yeah, I appreciate your time. I know we hit 9:30 pretty much on the dot. So I'm just going to close up the video, and you could just like wave goodbye or say peace out. And so see you guys. Bye, BirdBot. Catch you all later.